What made me think that I could retire? Many people think that this is just a dream and it's not an option. So today I'm going to share my story on how I mentally got there and how I figured out that I could retire early. I hope you enjoy this video. 5 years ago, my life looked completely different than it does now. I was working a desk job. I had decided that I wanted to take a break from healthcare. We knew how to live on less, so we didn't really need my high-paying job to do that. And so I just wanted something less stressful, but I knew I still needed some money coming in. So I just took this easy desk job, and through that experience, my daughter introduced me to decluttering. I had always stored a lot of things, stored things for other people, stored things for my kids. If someone offered me something and it was free, I had taken it thinking I had a use for it, because I had Depression-era parents and we used everything we possibly could, even if it was something that we didn't know what we were going to do with at the time. I had never really noticed all of the stuff that I had started to store. It was always like, just put it in the building, put it in the garage. I had room to store it. We didn't have a dumpster. We lived in the country. So putting it in a dumpster at the edge of the road was never an option. So I ended up storing a lot of things. And while I was doing that, I ran across a lot of magazines that I had not looked through, that I had saved. And I had thought, when I have time, I'm going to sit down and look through them. As I was looking through them, I started saving things that I felt were important in the magazines, or things that gave me ideas. I started making this little folder of things that caught my eye, that I thought, I can do that at home. That's something that I can do. I have the stuff to do that. So I started making this folder, and in making this folder, it was the beginning of changing my world. I realized how much the physical items were taking up so much of the mental space in my head. Why couldn't I have the garden I always wanted? The flower bed I always wanted, the beautiful outdoor space that I had always dreamed about. I could reasonably make those visions come true in my space if time was allowed. And I began to change my focus. I could design the life that I wanted, no matter what my house looked like, no matter where I lived. And I started to get in the right headspace to begin. This was before I ever even knew about YouTube. I'd never even listened to one YouTube in my entire life. I didn't know anything about it. So this was a totally new experience for me. And I was in my 50s. So I started studying things like manifesting. Whether you believe it or not, it helps shift your mindset into believing that dreams are possible. When before you thought, maybe this is all there is. I get up, I go to work, I buy food, I buy household supplies, I take care of my animals, I come home, I watch TV, I take walks. This is my life. This is the way it is. But I realized that there's still a lot of dreams out there, and this was not all there was. And in sitting down and looking at these magazines and pulling out things that caught my eye, I realized that dreams were possible, that I could still dream and achieve things. In fact, this was the best time in my life to do that, because I was now an empty nester. My daughter is a yoga therapist, and she got me this little necklace that is supposed to be like a mantra. And if you don't know what that is, it has these little wooden beads. And you move these little wooden beads one by one, and you repeat something that is comforting to you. And then your mind remembers this stuff. And when things happen and you are caught up in whatever drama or stressful event is happening in your life, that mantra pops in your head and it's comforting. So the mantra that I chose was, it's going to be okay. I wanted to make some changes in my life, and I didn't know what was going to happen. And I was scared about those changes. But every time I took one step closer to those changes, I would hear this voice in my head saying, it's going to be okay. And it was that mantra that I had kind of instilled in my brain to comfort me at times of stress or distress. And I found it so comforting that I started to believe that, hey, I can change. This doesn't have to be my life. I can do things that I've dreamed of. And so I started sitting down and going through those magazines and tearing out pictures that caught my eye. And I started making a folder. This is before I ever knew there were vision boards. I guess they were popular around that time, but I had no idea because I didn't watch YouTube or have any social media stuff that I really ever was exposed to anything like that. So I started making this little folder just of things that caught my eye. And I realized through that process that all my dreams were possible, that I had kind of become stagnant in thinking that this is all that there was. And it wasn't that I was unhappy, I had just become complacent with the idea of this was how my life was going to play out. So I started dreaming again, and I started planning, and I started looking at early retirement. And I started putting numbers on a page of what early retirement might look like, how I could fund that. Would it be possible for me to stop work to fund that? And I realized in putting all the numbers together that it looked like it could be possible sooner than I thought. I hear so many people say that there's no way for them to retire. And I wonder if they've ever really put those numbers to a page. Have they ever really looked at that and then said, I want this so bad that I don't need this and it won't cost me this and I will be able to put money back here, just little areas that only you would know about if you sit down and look at your numbers. And so I started doing that, and I started talking to my husband, and I said, I think we could retire early if we live frugally and we start living on this retirement budget. I think we could. And of course, he was very leery. He was always a believer of that saying that you need $1 million to retire. But when I started putting down the numbers and the projections, I thought, I don't need anywhere near that. Maybe if I lived extravagantly, maybe if I had a fancy house, maybe if I went out to eat a lot or bought a lot of fancy clothes, I don't know where that $1 million comes from, because I even know how to travel inexpensively, and I've done a lot of it in my life, and it doesn't take away from the experience. In fact, it enhances it, because I know I have more opportunity to travel again if I can save money while I'm traveling now. And so I just started dreaming again. And I think I had stopped dreaming. I had so many dreams for my kids. I had so many dreams for their future and in raising them. And once I had raised them and they moved out, I didn't really know what my dreams looked like. And I realized I could dream again. Not only could I dream again, they could be realistic dreams. And I could actually live out the life that I had dreamed of. And so I started making those plans through my vision folder. So I'm going to show you next what was in my vision folder. Some of the things that I had in my vision folder were things like this: crafts with things that I already had available to me, beautiful scenery that could just take me there and make me feel like I was relaxed and content and at peace, places that could go on my bucket list, places that were beautiful that I hadn't seen before. I took those pages and put them in there so that I would know where to go when I took that next vacation. And places that I could enjoy, and places that could take me there when I looked at the pictures. And then I saw a theme that was things like this, that a lot of them had nature in the picture, which is so important to me. I know that's something that I have to incorporate into my life wherever I am, because those pictures with nature are the things that I find the most comforting. This was a very good soul seeking experience, being able to pick out my favorites and then review them later and see the country theme and see the nature theme and see the travel thing and know that those things were so important to me. I took pictures that had to do with gardens and beautiful layouts of gardens and different flowers that I didn't know about, and how to arrange your yard with these different flowers to make them beautiful and relaxing pathways that I could make. And these things gave me ideas on what I could do at my home with things that I already had. There were a lot of things in here that had pallets and different woodworking and outside patios. And of course, I love the cactus. I also kept recipes in here of things that I wanted to try. So this vision folder helped motivate me. It helped me decide what I really wanted and what was important to me. And I was able to see it so much more clearly by just looking through the things that had caught my eye. I started to see those themes and I thought, those are realistic. I can make those happen. It's not like my folder was full of a mansion by the beach or a sports car. They were all full of things that I loved that were reasonable for me to make happen. And then I started making plans. And that is where this all started. That is something that I wanted to bring to your attention, because as we've talked over this channel about dreams and planning and budgeting and setting goals, I had forgot to mention, and maybe I had forgotten how this started. I had forgotten that I'd made this folder of all these things that really got me motivated from the beginning. Now, I know magazines are not really a thing anymore. I know Pinterest is a thing, and I don't get on Pinterest, and I don't know how realistic some of the things on there are when it would come to like making yourself a folder of the things that you love. I know there's a way to do that. I've heard my mother-in-law talk about it, in fact. But it's something to really think about. What are the themes in your life that make you happy? For me, they're nature, travel, living in the country, having peace and quiet. For me, that's a quality of life. I like being away from the hustle and bustle. Even when I lived in Texas this last 3 months, I did not feel a lot of that hustle and bustle. I was able to live in a quiet community. No one messed with you. They would say hi. You could be around people if you wanted to be, going and hanging out at the pool or going to activities, or you could choose to walk in solitude and spend time reading and sewing and doing things that you wanted and sit in your lot, and people would wave as they went by, but it wasn't an interruption to the qualities that I seeked. So I really loved that experience. I say I spent time alone, and yet I was in the city. So see, it's still possible to live out those dreams. We just have to put a pen to paper, and I really believe that. You really have to put a pen to paper, define what you want, and then start seeing what is realistic, what can you start working on that you can make happen. I think that's the key to happiness. Us becoming stagnant and complacent, that this is all there is, that's what leads to us being depressed and feeling like we have no hope and our life is never going to change, and that we don't have the ability to make it change. Making this folder made me realize how easy it was to have the ability that I already had to make these things a reality. So, whether you believe in manifesting or positive affirmations or vision boards or vision folders, I encourage you to sit down and really do some soul searching on what your dreams are, what's realistic, what can you start working on now that would improve your happiness, your contentment, your peace, and then start making those things happen. Thanks for watching today, and I hope you have a great week.